start learning WordPress, you have two options. You can either install WordPress on a remote host. Usually you lease space on a host such as SiteGround or Bluehost or Gator or many other hosting providers that will usually help you install WordPress with a single click using something called a smart script. You can also install a local web server on your laptop or desktop machine and learn WordPress locally. To do this, I recommend using a service called Bitnami at www.bitnami.com. Here, you can not only install a web server, but you can install with a single click WordPress running on the web server. The advantage to running and learning WordPress on a local computer is you'll have control over the environment. You don't need an internet connection. It's probably also faster and more efficient to work locally, especially when you're just learning WordPress. I recommend always using a local version of WordPress to test different plugins and extensions and approaches to your work. So go ahead and browse to bitnami.com as I have here. Click on the Applications link, and that'll take you to a page with all of the current applications that Bitnami supports. The very first one is WordPress. Click on that. This will install both the server, called the server stack, and WordPress. Notice that in this case I'm going to be installing WordPress 4.0.0, and I'm going to be downloading the Macintosh version. I'm using a Mac here, and so the website recognizes that. Go ahead and click on the Download WordPress Installer link right there. Go ahead and choose No Thanks, just take me to the download. Choose where you want to save your download. Notice this is labeled Bitnami WordPress 4.0.0, then the version number there, and then Installer. Again, this is going to install WordPress plus your server. And I'm going to save this to my temp folder. Click on Save. And then go ahead and double click on the DMG file if you're on the Mac. If you're on Windows, that'll be an exe file. And notice that I have this WordPress installer. So you would simply double click on this file. Follow the on-screen instructions to go ahead and install. When you get this message here, WordPress is an application downloaded from the internet. Are you sure you want to open it? Go ahead and open it. Bitnami is a trusted source. And then the installation package will go ahead and install, in this case, both the server and WordPress. Choose the language that you want, and then go through the setup screens following the instructions here. I'm going to click on Next. Select your components that you want to install. Here, I'm just going to install WordPress and PHPMyAdmin. I don't need Varnish. You'll probably want to do the same. You'll just need WordPress and PHPMyAdmin. Click on Next. Select a folder where you want to install this. The location by default on the Mac is going to be in the Applications folder. If you're installing the Windows version of the local server in WordPress, it'll probably install right on your C drive. I'm going to go ahead and accept the default here and click on Next. Here, you'll want to note your username, email address, and then the login. And then the password, you'll need to remember that password, also the username. So go ahead and write that down somewhere. You will definitely need this later. In my instructions here as you follow along, there'll be certain points where it will ask you your login and your password. I'm going to use a very low-level password here because this is installing WordPress on my local computer. It's not connected to the internet, so there's really no security risk. So the biggest risk here is you'll forget your username and password. So I keep mine pretty simple, and I reuse the same ones. I would not do this if I was installing WordPress on my host, which is connected to the internet and does have security risks. So you want to be much more security conscious when setting up your login and passwords for the WordPress that you install on your host. So I have low-level passwords here. Login as user. Click on Next. Write that down. Write down that username and password. Go ahead and give your blog a name and click Next. You want to configure your SMTP settings. This is required so your application can send notifications via email. This again is a local configuration, so I actually don't need email. This is not going to be on the internet. So I'm going to go ahead and skip this. This is the default, so go ahead and skip yours as well. You'd probably want to set up email again if you were setting up WordPress on your host. This screen tells you a little bit about Bitnami. It's a new offering that allows you to host your Bitnami applications in the cloud. You can choose to learn more about their cloud hosting. This would be setting up WordPress on a hosted server. Click on Next. Setup is now ready to begin installing Bitnami WordPress stack on your computer. This Bitnami WordPress stack means it's installing a server stack first and then WordPress right on top of it. And now it's preparing to install, and it's going to give you some information about Bitnami and WordPress. You can customize and enhance your Bitnami WordPress installation with themes and plugins from their partners. I'll be covering both themes and plugins in this sequence of tutorials, getting you started and orientated to WordPress. Let's go ahead. The application will unpack files, and this may take several minutes, but you probably want to stay on the screen and watch it to make sure that everything is installing correctly. If not, there's really no corrections or fixes here. You'll probably just want to delete whatever was installed here, either download another install package or reinstall using the same package if this doesn't work or if you get errors. When it's finished unpacking the files, it'll then install the MySQL database, and again, this could take a couple of minutes. Then it's going to go ahead and configure WordPress, then create an uninstaller, run the uninstaller, and then when it's completed, it'll give you this setup screen, completing the Bitnami WordPress stack setup wizard. Setup has finished installing Bitnami WordPress stack on your computer. Go ahead and launch the WordPress stack to make sure that everything is working correctly by clicking on the Finish button. And this will then launch it in your default browser, giving you this startup screen. Welcome. Access Bitnami WordPress stack. Bitnami project was created to help spread the adoption of freely available, high-quality open source web applications. You can learn more about Bitnami here. You can learn more about WordPress at this link here. Learn more about Bitnami stacks at that link there. And you can access the built-in management tool PHPMyAdmin by clicking on this link right here. It also says for security reasons it's only accessible when using 127.0.0.1 as the host name. Notice that that says 127.0.0.1. On the Windows operating system, that'll be different. Let's go ahead and click on the PHPMyAdmin link. This is a good indication whether the installation was successful. You should see this page here if everything installed okay. Now the username here is not the same one that you had earlier. This is going to be root, and this is kind of hidden in the documentation, the Bitnami documentation. So make a note of this. Write down on a piece of paper, PHPMyAdmin, username root. The password is the same that you used to set up WordPress. My low-level password here. So go ahead and check that you have the username and the password correct by clicking on Go. If you see this, then it's a pretty good indication that you have a good installation and everything's okay. Let's go back to the start screen here by clicking on the back arrow of my browser. Now let's actually check the WordPress software by clicking on the Access Bitnami WordPress stack link right there. And this is your now working WordPress website that's been installed correctly. This is WordPress 4.0. Hello world, welcome to WordPress. This is your first post, edit or delete it, then start blogging. So from here you'd move on to additional tutorials that I've created for learning how to create posts, edit posts, delete posts, as well as edit, delete, and create pages.